Yeah, so the vote was 99% in favor of the strike, which was something else to watch in the room as, you know, thousands of workers from all over the world arrived. And and one of the things, I mean, I again, I'm pretty hardened on these things. I don't get mushy about very much. But for a bunch of the people who were arriving, they said that this was the first time that they'd ever been able to cast a vote for anything, that these are people that do not come from democratic countries. They in many cases don't come from functioning governments. And so this was the very first time that they were able to exercise a democratic right. And the fact that it was done in this sort of old fashioned, like, here's a paper slip, you mark an X and put it into a giant wooden box that is just marked as the union vote box. It was something else to see, but also interesting to see that there were some groups of workers who came into the room as a ballroom of a DoubleTree hotel, just a kind of giant soulless ballroom. But people sitting in at some of these tables for a very long time, contemplating whether they could really bring themselves to do this, that they understood the risks. And in some cases coming in groups and asking questions of the union, and a lot of discussion about, will I be able to be identified? Will the company, know how I've cast my vote? Especially there were concerns about that as they came in and registered, with the union, like that I'm here and I'm voting and here's my ballot, and having to be checked off on the list of people who voted. There were people who were like, are they going to know then that I voted? And and as it turns out, it's 99%. Essentially, they know who voted to strike. But despite all of that, that's what they did. They said, almost unanimously, they said that what we need to do is strike. And the strike, I should note, the strike was an unfair labor practice strike. There were specific complaints that were made, and they boiled down to questions about PPE that the company is supposed to provide, but we're charging the workers for their own PPE, and then also then questions of that all relate to line speed. What kinds of time was allotted to workers, and how they were able to do, how much time they were given to perform certain tasks. At the same time, they were also asking for a wage increase, but they didn't. This was not an economic strike, which I think is also really intriguing. That they raised this as like, yes, we want a wage increase because the prices of everything, the inflationary rate has increased beyond the wage increase that's been offered by the company. But also they were saying, like, this wage increase is one of the things that helps us offset things like paying for our own equipment, and if we're being expected to work more than 50% faster than we were a year or two ago, shouldn't we be getting paid more? And so all of those things were raised as their issues. They went out to the picket line, and I have to say, really, it kind of moving to see the vote happen. Really impressive in the same way to see what happens when you're like, okay, we have to get 4,000 workers to a picket line outside of a meatpacking plant along a highway all at the same time. And you can't use the company's parking lot because the company has closed it off to workers and said, the plant is closed due to the strike. So they rented some parking lots at a nearby fairgrounds, and everybody went on foot over to the picket at about 5 a.m. And watching the patience of thousands of cars come into a parking lot and figure out how this was all going to work, and everybody getting their picket signs and figuring out where they were supposed to be positioned, it was really something. I mean, it was a vision of this workforce and how they do these kind of complex tasks as a single unit every day. It's just that this time, instead of doing it for the company, they were doing it for themselves.